Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell on the side, so once we have all the updated news, you'll be the first one getting all the insight. Now, exciting, we're getting into 2023. Now, there has been numbers of news came out this week, so I will manage to get all these news and media articles, and by the end of this video, I'll also provide some of my comments as well. So give you some updates so you can actually track what the visa trend will be and how I have consistently predicting how the trend it is. And as if you're a long-term follower of my channel, you may notice that the little trend has actually landed on what I had predicted. Perhaps the timing is not pretty exact, but the actual trend is actually there. So anyway, let's have a look. It's exciting 2023, borders open. Well, despite the economy of the world is not really going right, but as I said, if we're looking into the immigration history of Australia, well, every period that economy is not really good, the bounce back utilizing the visa system to bounce the economy back is one way to get around it. And I assume Australia continue to use that, as we have seen last year when the Job and Skills Summit, an increase of net migration quota, basically is a reaction and response to the post-pandemic economy. All right, let's have a look. Numbers of different. I think today we got to go through 4 news media, so it's going to be a little bit lengthy, but I will keep it short as possible. Okay, so the first one is this one coming from ABC News with the title Regional Australia Institute Call for National Population Strategy for the region. Obviously, what they actually experience currently, well, have been experiencing the past, is a lack of support from the government, and also they want to get more people to rural areas. Now the problem here is the infrastructure for those regional places in Australia, well, in comparisons, is not really as good as what it is, and also the people and the government, and also the business stakeholders in regional Australia is not as what should I say? What's the word to describe this? It's not as visionary as they seem. Say, I've been dealing with different state government and also different business institutions in regional areas. First of all, their responsive rate is very slow, and the understanding of document required to be provided to sponsor labor, sometimes sometimes very slow, and they misunderstand a lot of time as well. So if these kind of things cannot really be adjusted and put forward, well, how can a skilled migrant coming from overseas, where they have experienced urban life and is living in the big cities, to actually adapt into regional Australia? So that's another thing. So arguing about Melbourne getting 70,000 people and regional Victoria only getting 7,000, well, you can't really push people, because we got to look at this. Under the Constitution of Australia, the freedom movement is granted for everyone in Australia, so you really need to get it more attractive and put more government resources in regional Australia in order to actually attract this. Now, the success story here is, I will only say, if we're going back 20 years for Brisbane, it was a small town. And what about 5-10 years ago? Adelaide was a small town. Now they're flourishing. So really need to put efforts, I think, from the government side, not just for not just try to push people into regional. For example, there has been a lot of people migrate to Tasmania, and they say they just cannot even find any jobs, or and these kind of things happening every day. What about in Northern Territory? Got people want to go there to get into the resource industry, but the government does not support it. So how do they attract people? Anyway, that's one of the news. The other one is Labour has been urged to keep the golden ticket investor visa. Now, what's that one talking about? It's talking about the SIV, Significant Investment Visa program, whereby you input 5 million Australian dollars. There you get a visa to actually and have a pathway to migrate as a permanent resident. It has been primarily used by Chinese migrants in the past 10 years. Now, despite that, it's true, but we're in 2023. Are they still going to be a lot of those kind of Chinese investors who come on board? I doubt. I don't think will be that as many as possible, but I think keeping the visa there, I have no objection on that one. But obviously the Business Chamber of Australia is seeking to keep it there because it still generate a lot of taxes, but a lot of other people are calling, for example, the former Immigration Department Secretary Abu Rizvi, saying that he favors to actually cut it off because it's a retirement vehicle. Now, I have nothing. I'm not against retirement vehicle. There are people looking to retire. They want to go somewhere else. They have money. They want to invest it. Is anything wrong with that? I don't think so, because they've invested, the taxes payable, taxes received by the government, and that can really reintroduce to local training and things like that. These kind of retiree is actually better than the general retiree, isn't it? So why do you not welcoming those kind of high yield retiree? Anyway, I'm okay. You can cut it. You can keep it. I have no comment on that one there. Okay, now the third one is coming from Guardian again. The topic saying that the migration to Australia is set to rebound to pre-pandemic level. Well, pretty sure. I mean, we've seen what's happening in Europe with the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and all these missiles and bombardments going on in Europe. It has triggered a lot of Europeans also had the thought and intent to migrate as well. So it would definitely rebound, and not talking about just people coming from Asia. Despite that, there has been a lot of restriction in China, but people from East Asia and Southeast Asia, and also Central Asia, from India, there was still going to be a lot of people following what they wanted to achieve in Australia. So that number is definitely rebound. Is a good sign, of course, is a good sign. But what's happening there is there's still lack of there's still skill shortage currently. Now, despite there has been a report telling us, we're going to move on to the next media report, which has more detail and was written by Abu Rizvi. The economy of the world is shrinking. Now, obviously, a lot of people debate that if the economy is shrinking, it's not going good, we should keep the migration level. But I have a different view. I've seen the historic data. Now, every time there is a major economic impact, for example, World War II, for example, 2008, the Lehman Brothers issue, it always, a year or two after that, it always kicked in with the large migration policies. Now, I'm more in favor of having more migrants going in, because that actually boost up the economy as well, as we have experienced in the past 2 or 3 years how the Australian economy revolve over the pandemic, the global pandemic, and noticing that there's actually a lot of needs. So I think there's going to be more input as how I have viewed it. Now, last but not least, let's go into Independent Australia with the author, the former Immigration Secretary Abu Rizvi. I'd like to read his content, his information. Although some points I don't really agree with, but it's a good view, and how we digested a lot more information coming from different angles to arrive and result with whatever the prediction that I have or the other profession will have. Okay, now, path of the Albanese government for improving immigration in 2023. So obviously there has been a lot of stakeholder in the industry putting in the review and recommendation to the immigration, so-called the interim report called Parkinson Review. This is going to come up next month, so very, very soon, and how the government actually going to choose what to do. Although there's going to be limited range of issues, but it will, well, I think 70%, 80% affect us. So first of all, the populations. Now, talking about populations, obviously there has been a previous debate on the big Australia. They don't want to get into this debate, but look, what Kevin Rudd, the former prime minister, who's currently the diplomats in US, has said this idea of big Australia. I think this is definitely gonna be the key, despite that they don't want to say it. But you know, a continent, the sixth largest continent in the world with only 25 million. I mean, it has a lot of room to grow, and it wants to grow. You cannot restrict a kid to actually grow. So this is definitely going to be an issue there, and also with the recent geopolitical view, I think there's definitely a lot more resources going to throw in. And plus, every country is facing this aging population issue. How do you replace the aging population? Obviously, skilled migrant and young people, international student graduates will be the key there. So immigration level, this is basically talking about what I have just reviewed as the it's kind of in a yo-yo situation. There are people telling us, saying to to the government that because the global recession is coming, we should really restrict the number of the migrants coming in. But there's also the other side of the debate, because there's recession, we should utilize migration, especially utilizing international students to boost up the economy and keep Australian economy in set. For example, back in 2008, Australian economy wasn't as bad as what it had struck in USA, because there has been a lot of other things, despite there's a resources, coals and things, iron ore and things that been shipping out. But look, there's a different view. The opposition definitely will say something to cut the program, but I don't think so, because despite we're going into perhaps a potential recession, but do not forget we also had a two-year global pandemic just right behind us, and we need those professions to go into the Australian economy there as well. Now the next one is independent versus state nomination program. Basically, this is what I have said in my previous video, that the current federal government is looking to perhaps to lead the way. That's how I feel about it, but there hasn't really been given too much of the rights to the state and territories to actually nominate. Now, obviously, in what Abdul Rizvi is trying to say here is they should really direct the state and territory to give them more rights to actually nominate more people. But again, the problem here, as I have indicated, some state and territory, for example, Tasmania government, their criteria is just too complex for them to go through one applicant. Perhaps if we're utilizing subclass 189, you probably can go through 10 applicants already. So in the need of the skill shortage, I think skill independent will still gotta be one way to lead the whole skill migration. That's how I feel about it. I'm not saying state or the territories should abandon the nomination. They still can, but they should open up a better options for those one who cannot reach IELTS 7, for those one who cannot have enough points to reach to actually go to the largest cities there. Employer sponsor, I have the same view with the Abdul Rizvi here. They really need to streamline the whole employment sponsor visa to actually allow it to make it easier. And how easier, how streamlined they will actually do it, don't know. But the whole government, stakeholders, and also the author of this media, and also myself, I think that's the way to go. So really looking forward to that one. Overseas students, I think this will continue to grow with the trend, with the opening up of the border, and the problem in Europe. Obviously, there's a war going on, and also the costs of the North America's institutions institution is, so expensive. Now, obviously, there's still good opportunity in USA, but there has been a lot of, trend coming to Australia. But some of the cheap courses, how they're going to deal with it, not too sure. I'm not too sure how the government is going to deal with it, because that has been there for decades. Don't think you can get rid of them, but I don't know how this will go on, but there's never a solution to this. Now, asylum seekers, this is part that I don't really have much comment on this, despite of the government is looking to put the temporary asylum pathway to permanent, just like how they have done it with the by Lower family back then. So anyway, that's the news recently that we have encountered. That's four media news, very important there, just to update those one for you, despite there has been a lot of different other comments all around. But for myself, I think 2023 and 24 will be a very forward-looking year. Seems the Albanese government has actually just gone through a 6 month of intense cleaning up of the mess that the previous government has actually produced in 9 years. I think 2023 will be a way that the Department of Home Affairs, the minister, will actually take the steer the whole system back, and which direction that will be. I think we'll definitely focus on the skilled migration, the talented people. More people come to Australia. For the investment visa, it's a question mark. Some people say we need to abandon that, but I don't think so. These are high taxpayers. Despite a lot of people say they don't really pay. No, I don't think. Not much of the taxes, but they spend money in Australia. There's still tax in there as well. Just like how I have viewed the SIV visa. Some people say that it's a retiree visa, but so what? It's a high yield tax payable retiree. That's better than some retiree, they don't really pay, and they just they kept themselves in pension, and they live on their superannuations. Which one's better? Of course, the high taxpayer pay retiree is much better than those one, isn't it? Anyway, should you have more question or comments, really like to leave a comment right down below, and I see you next video. Goodbye.